So now let's start our class. So today we'll be doing financial derivatives. Just hoping you have the material that we had sent earlier. So now I want us to start by knowing what are derivatives, what entails derivatives. So now derivatives is just financial instrument. And being financial instrument, that means financial instrument whose value or whose fair value be determined from what we call the underlying asset. Then under derivatives, they are classified into four. Number one, we have what we call the options. Then number two, we have what we call swaps. Then also we look at what we call the future contracts. Also we look at what we call the forward contracts. So those are the four classifications of derivative we'll be looking at today. So in number one, I have said that we have the options. That's what we call the financial option. Number two, we have the swaps. Number three, we have the forward contracts. Number four, we have the future contracts. Now, from the handout that I sent, let's go to page one. Make sure you have the handout. Page one. Handout page one. There we are. So we have the participants in the financial market or derivative market, and we have three classification of participants. Number one, we have what we call the hedgers. As we say, like we say hedging. What's hedging? Hedging, that means is a strategy to minimize on risk. So hedgers, they are participants who enter into the market, financial market, in order to minimize on risk. So now those are what we call the hedgers. Then number two, we have what we call the speculators. Now speculators, they are there just to make profits. So, and then number three, we have what we call the arbitragers. Now arbitragers, they enter to the market so that they can have what we call the short-term gains. So that means in another term, arbitragers are risk averse. Let me repeat again once more. Participants in the financial derivative market, they are classified into three. Number one, we have the hedgers. Hedgers, they enter into the market so that they can minimize on risk. Then number two, we have the speculators. Speculators are the Kikuyus. That means they are there to make profits. Then number three, we have the arbitragers. Arbitragers, they are risk neutral. That means they enter to make short-term gains. So those are just the participants in the financial market. Then we have type of derivative, as we said. We have the options. Also, we have the swaps. We have the future contract, and we have the forward contract. So we'll come back to options later. So let's start with swaps. So take out your handout. Make sure you have your handout, page 5. Handout, page 5. Handout, page 5. So now, swaps. So now, don't read what I have written there. First of all, I need you to listen. I need you to understand. What are swaps? Now, swaps, they are just financial contracts between two parties where the members, they enter into that contract for mutual gain. I repeat again. I repeat again. I repeat again. So we are saying that swaps, they are just financial contracts. In this case, the financial contract where the two parties come into an agreement so that they can have mutual gain. Now, for example, let me give you an illustration. Now, assume I'm working in a bank. I have a friend, assuming I have a friend who works in a bank. And from the organization, that means they can be able to get a loan at a lower interest rate. Now, assuming the market interest rate is 20% or just 15%, that's the market interest rate. And then, if you're an employee of that bank, you can be able to get a loan at an interest rate of 10%. That's what you call the fringe benefit. So in this case, I can talk to you as my friend. I tell you, just go to your organization, just get for me a loan of 1 million. But in that case, that loan you'll get using your name, not my name. Remember, you are the employee of that company. So in that case, you'll get a loan. You give it to me, but in this case, I'll be paying you, but I'll be paying an interest of 10% instead of the market rate of 15%. Now, that's what we call swaps, where the parties enter into a contract for a mutual agreement so that they can change either asset or the liability. So now that's what we call the swaps. Then let's go to what we call the future and the forward contracts. Future and the forward contracts. We'll come back to them. That's page 7. Page 7. Page 7. Page 7. Now, a future contract simply is just a legal, it's a legal agreement to buy or sell something at a predetermined price. That's what we call the future contract. I repeat again, it's just a legal agreement to buy or sell something at a predetermined price. Then we have what we call the forward contracts. Now, for the forward contract, it's just a customized contract. In this case, where the two parties buy or sell an asset at specific future time at an agreed price. Now, let me repeat again. I want to differentiate between the future contract and the forward contract. Now, the future contract, now, for example, now assume we enter in a contract. I tell you, for example, now assuming you are my student, and you tell me, John Mark, you know what? Next semester, I want you to teach me advanced financial reporting. That's section 6. And then we agree, I'll charge you 10,000. That's an agreement. Hope you are getting that. I'll teach you next semester advanced financial reporting, and I'll charge you 10,000. So that means the service, the asset or the liability will be performed in the future, but we have agreed the amount now. Now that's what we call the future contract, where we agree all the terms, that the price and the time, but the asset or the liability will be exchanged sometime in the future. Then we also have the forward contract. Now, forward contract, we have just simply said, just a customer's contract. In this case, we enter into a contract now, where we buy or sell something, but the payment will be made in the future. But that amount will pay, the amount will be determined now. For example, if I said you something like a car at 1 million, but you tell me, now you know what, John Mark, I don't have the cash now, but I'll pay you after 3 months. So if you agree 1 million, so at that time, you just pay 1 million. That's what you call a forward contract. So future contract, everything you agree now, but the transaction will take place in the future. Forward contract, you carry out the transaction now, but the settlement will be made in the future, but at a predetermined rate. Now that's what we call the future contract, the forward contract, and we have some differences there. One of the differences between the future and the forward contract is that the future, they are traded in an organized market or the formal market. So that means for future is just a legal agreement. Now, for the forward contract, that means it's just a mutual agreement. We act on a good faith. In that case, they are traded on over the counter. Then another difference for the futures, they involve a standardized contract. We have said that's something that is formal. But on the other side, it's just a negotiated contract. That's for the forward. Then for the future, we have said that they are traded in a formal market. That means they need a third-party guarantor. So that means future contract, we need a guarantor. But for the forward contract, no guarantor. Another difference that we have seen that for the future contract, we need a guarantor. So that means default risk is minimal as compared to forward contract. So another difference is that for the forward contract, it's much risky. Risk of default is higher as compared with the future contracts. So now let me take you back to the options. Now let's go back to the options. Go back to the options. We go back to the options. We go back to the options. Now, an option is just a financial contract which gives the buyer or the seller the right, but not obligation, to buy or sell an asset. I repeat again, an option is just a contract which gives the buyer or the seller the right, but not obligation, either to buy or sell that security sometimes in the future. Now, that's what you call the option. So I hope you're following. So you're looking at options now. Now, you have said that for the options, they are just financial contracts which gives the buyer or the seller, those are the participants in the financial market, the right but not obligation either to buy or sell that underlying asset. The underlying asset can be either the securities. Then we have two types of options. Options are classified into two. Number one, we have what we call the call option. We have the call option and we have the put option. What's the difference? I want you to get the difference. I don't want you to cram. Now, the difference between the call option and the put option. Call, when I say call, quitter. So that means we have said we have two participants here. We have the buyer and we have the seller. So in this case, if it's a call option, calling, that means I'm calling you as the buyer. So that means for the call option, it gives the buyer the right but not obligation to buy. I repeat again. For the call, you are calling. So that means you are calling the customer. That's the buyer. So that means for the call option, it's a contract which gives the buyer the right but not obligation either to buy a given securities at a predetermined rate. Then number 2, we have what we call the put option. Now put, you are putting, so that means I'm the seller, so I'm the one putting. So that means for the put, it's all about the seller. It gives the seller the right but not obligation. Call option gives the buyer, but for the put option gives the seller. Now, how do we get the value of the call? How do we get the value of the put? And this is how we get the value of the call and the value of the put. This is how we get them. So we have said we are looking at options. We are looking at options. So number 1, we have said that we have the call option. Then number 2, we have the put option. Those are the 2 types of options, call option and the put option. We have said that for the call option, it gives the buyer, the right. But for the put option, it gives the seller the right. And how do we get the value? Now, this is how we get the value of the call. The value of the call is equals to, you take the maximum, then you take the market price per share, then you raise what you call the exercise price. Now, exercise price means, for example, if you are to sell this something in sometime in the future, after 3 months, let's assume the market price of the share is 10 shillings, but you'll sell it at 15. Now, that 15 becomes the exercise price. 0, that's how we get the value of the call. Then we have the put option. How do we get the value of the put option? The value of the put, in this case, you take max, you take the exercise price, you minus the market price per share. Now that's how we get. The value of the call, you're just taking the market price, you raise the exercise price. But for the put, you'll take the exercise price minus the market price per share. So you may ask what's the relevance of this 0. We'll come to know what that 0 means. Then, when you are selling or when you are buying, how do you determine the profit or the loss? This is how we get the profit or loss. Profit or loss when you're exercising. In case it's a call, for the call option, this is what you'll do. You'll take the value of the call minus premium. In case it's a put option, how do you get the profit or loss? In this case, you take the value of the put minus the premium. So now, let me explain what we mean by premium. What do we mean by premium? Now, for financial reporting, if you see that you sold the share at a premium, if you sell the share at a premium, so that means you sold the shares at a profit. But when it comes to international finance or for financial derivatives, now premium means what we call an unrefundable fee. So in another word, premium in this case, it's like more of an expense. It's like a small expense. You need to get that. Pardon again. I'm saying that if you want to get the profit, you take the value of the call or the value of the put, then you deduct the premium. And I've said that in this case, the premium just means the expense than an unrefundable fee where the participant usually do pay.